Hey, this is Billy and William from Permaculture Farm, and finally we're all here. I mean, we got everything on the property essentially. I won't bore you with all the details, but got things squared away at work, got things squared away at the house, and then we basically got what we needed here. So after having gotten here, William and I and Michelle to some extent sat down and decided to make a list of all the things, and not necessarily in any particular order. We just made a list of all the things that needed to get done. And that's what I suggest you do when you go to a new place. Just don't think about the order. Just first throw out the things that need to be done. So that's exactly what we did yesterday, right? So we came up with a number of things, and it's not necessarily in this order, but we'll work through this and explain how we decided what order to do things. So, I mean, first thing we came up with what? Fixing the driveway. What were some other things on there?
Chicken tractor, rainwater catchment, getting pigs and a cow.
Retaining wall.
Cow. Yeah.
Retaining wall, that's another big one right there. We have all the water in this place is basically going to a septic tank. Well, for us, that doesn't make sense, especially since over the last couple of years we've been using composting toilets. So we need to make adjustments in the plumbing, and thankfully this house is sitting on crawl space, so those are things to get done. We're talking about a raised bed. We have a problem with, this is a very, very steep property, so we got to find ways in which to deal with that. So is it terracing? Do we do swales? What do we do in those areas? And strangely enough, when we did this, when we came up with this list, what was the last thing we decided?
It was to design the place.
Yeah. I mean, two permaculture designers, and the last thing we decide on, the last thing, strangely enough, that we came up with was design. In fact, here is the list we actually came up with, and you'll see at the very bottom of it, design. And this is coming from people that know better. So folks, this is this should be an example to you and anybody else you know out there. This is by no means a comprehensive list. This is a very, 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 very short list. But where you see an asterisk are the things that are most pressing. Okay, we're going to go through the list. By no means a comprehensive list of all the things that need to get done. We just basically brainstormed and picked the things just off the top of our heads, literally went down the list, and then we'll cover some of the ones that are of greater importance in greater detail later. So right off the bat, fixing the driveway. We don't necessarily have full-time access if we can't get up this very, very steep driveway. Now, we've taken the time to put down rocks, but the bigger problem is that the water does not shed from the road the way it should. So what that means is in one area, we're going to add a culvert. In other areas, we're going to do other things that shed the water away from the road. Basically trying to find some remediation for the meantime for the water that just runs down the driveway and takes all the stones and the soil with it.
The next thing we're going to do is build a chicken tractor. And that's so the chickens can get out of the barn right now, because right now they're kind of stuck in the barn. We have to put in artificial light so they can act like chickens. So we need to get them out so we can put pigs in, and so the chickens can start acting more like chickens.
Okay, under the house, I mean, from the garage, we have a situation where the water comes in. The pump house is basically down by where the barn is. Not done perfectly, but adequately. So anyway, the water enters the house, and then underneath this crawl space, we got under it yesterday to figure out what was going on underneath there. We're thinking, okay, we better wrap these pipes. And it looks like we can solve a lot of that just with heat tape. We don't necessarily have to wrap the pipes because they're in the joists, the floor joists underneath, and all of that is insulated for the most part, except for the area where they've kind of neglected to put the stuff back where it came from. But either way, as an issue of caution, we're just going to go ahead and put eventually some heat tape on the areas where it enters from the ground and where it leaves that portion and goes to the other part of the house. What do we got next, son?
The next thing is fixing the banister. The railings in the house following the stairs, they're all kind of loose and dangerous, and
yeah, well, I mean, upstairs, yeah, it wouldn't do to actually have a bunch of kids running around up there climbing on the banisters because, there was a lot of, I mean, there are beautiful things and things of this house we absolutely love, but also there was poor craftsmanship, which, by the way, folks, in case you didn't know, it's my pet peeve. I detest poor craftsmanship. So we're going to straighten that out, but it's not necessarily on the top of the list. So replacing the carpet. Yeah, basically they put white carpet down in this place, and Michelle and William, before I got here, tried to steam clean it. That ain't going to work out. But guess what? That ain't a priority either. I mean, we have things that are far more pressing and need our attention long before that does. So it's a cosmetic thing that can be dealt with down the road. And of course, if we're going to take up the carpet, we're not going to put more carpet down. We'll probably put some hardwood, like it's done through a majority of the first floor, but it's not by any means a priority. We got other things like food production that need to take place. What else, son?
And we need to organize the garage. Right now, our boxes and tools and all that stuff are in the garage, and it's just kind of in piles. But we put up scaffolding and shelving yesterday, so.
Yeah, we put up some Baker scaffolding, and the cool thing about that stuff is that we can stack it. And inside that garage is about a 13-foot ceiling. Well, this is 6-foot scaffolding. So instead of having things more laid out, we can take things and stack them up in a way that is way, way, way more efficient than just, we're utilizing the elevation in this place for all of our storage, because there's a shortage really in this house of storage closets and things of that sort. So one of the big things here, and you'll see an asterisk next to it, is retaining walls. This is an extraordinarily steep slope. And in many cases, we can't just put swales in it and work that way. It's entirely too steep for that. Also, we need areas in which we intend to grow things. Well, this retaining wall is really going to serve a couple of functions, because they basically had the downspouts on this house initially just going from the downspout, and then it was dragging away the soil. In fact, in one portion of this, on the porch up there, all of the soil holding the block that supports the weight of the porch is almost nearly gone. So we need that among getting access to this place. That's actually one of the more important things. We just simply cannot allow that to keep going. Now, it looks as if they waited until the soil was pretty much washed away from around the house and then said, oh, shoot, we got a problem here. So they added these little black tubes that help, but they're not really addressing the problem. So ultimately, we don't just want this rainwater being wasted coming off the side of the house, from the top of the house and everywhere else, and just running away. Well, we want to get as much water storage capability as we possibly can. We want to save as much of that as we possibly can. So what's next, son?
Tree removal.
Tree removal, because what you don't see here in the background is basically the power lines going across this property. And the trees in the immediate background behind us are perilously close to those lines. So we need to drop some of those, especially some of the ones that are compromised and look like they're going to come down anyway. So at some point, we definitely need to put that on the list. Rain catchment, we kind of covered that a moment ago.
The gray water tank.
Right, so
Yeah.
Right now, everything goes into the septic. It's really not sustainable, especially since we've gotten really accustomed to using composting toilets over the last couple of years at our previous property. So we don't know that we're going to retrofit this place to accommodate composting toilets. Possibly, probably not. But since we already have an operational septic tank in order, we might just go ahead and leave the toilets in place and then replumb everything else to go into a gray water tank, as we've done at the previous property. So, okay, apartment conversion above the garage. So there's basically an area which they called, what is a bonus room? Bonus room above the garage. Mm-hmm. We're eventually going to turn that into an apartment. And we don't necessarily want to announce the reasons why just now.
It's the same size as the garage.
Right. It's a large space. It can be a very, very decent size efficiency apartment, or maybe a one-bedroom apartment. But we have plans for that, and we'll unveil those plans in the future. We don't necessarily want to get into that right now. But where does that fall onto the list? Well, to us, it's a high priority for reasons we can't disclose right now. But at the same time, we have bigger fish to fry in terms of some of the other things. Like we got to solve this erosion issue, and we got to do it quick. So it's on the list. It's a high priority, but not the highest priority.
Then move the washer and dryer to the garage. So there's a half bath just right on the other side of the garage inside the house, and where they put a washer and dryer, and they didn't put it in a very good location, because you can't open the washer door all the way and you can't open the dryer door. and you can't really reach into the washer either. So
Yeah, so you better be Mr. Fantastic to be able to get around the corner,
Yeah.
reach into the washer, and put things into the dryer. So it's a poor design, and it's a side-loading washer, or whatever they call those things.
front-loading.
Front-loading washer.
but there's a wall in front of it.
Yeah, so not the best design in the world. So we were thinking, you know what? Would it be a better use of that space to go ahead and take the washer and dryer out of there, resituate them into the garage, replumb everything? I mean, we're both electricians, so getting power there is not going to be a problem. So we're thinking, okay, it's poor space. We could turn that into another
Full bath.
right. We could turn that into a full bath instead of being a half bath, and make the area much more efficient. So that's definitely one of the things. Okay, so raised beds. Okay, so we are permaculture designers and farmers, and on this steep slope, Eric Sider from Planting Pioneers, or actually from the Eric Sider channel, you good friend of mine and ours, a good friend of the family, he'd actually suggested a number of ways on how to deal with this. Well, he'll be out in a month or so to figure out exactly how we want to go about that, because once again, we are on highly sloping ground. It's not very easy. There's no immediate fix in which to go about this as far as the raised beds, as far as how to produce food. There's no easy, quick way of doing that. But we're thinking as the retaining walls go in, as we terrace this property, we're kind of opening up ourselves for opportunities to be able to do this, to be able to make a good growing surface. And there's so much in terms of planning on how we have to go about that. Next, son?
Is adding pigs to the barn, so we can do that Joel Salatin compost method, where he does deep bedding,
Right.
and then he has the chickens run through it and till it up and stuff like that.
Well, the pigs do all that. Well, right now, the way we have the setup are the lambs. There's a couple of stalls in this barn. The sheep are in one area, or as your mom calls them, her little pet lammies. So those aren't for freezer consumption, as we once thought. But anyway, they're out there, but they're doing a fantastic job of basically mowing and bringing things down, and they've done a great job in the past, and they're going to continue to do a good job there. Now, prior to that, we explained in the previous video that they had cows sitting in the stall, where we have almost a foot, and in some cases 2 feet of cow manure out there. So the cool thing is the fermented corn that we'll stick at the bottom of there will be just irresistible to these pigs. Well, the chickens can only scratch so far, but these pigs are basically our 4-wheel drives that are going to dig down in there, turn that stuff up, and then what has been the problem will now become the solution, as those pigs and chickens basically turn that problem into compost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big plan for that. So we got to get pigs into the system as well, and then decide how we incorporate them into the landscape. We're working on all that.
And then a milk cow or a dual purpose cow. If we get a Dexter, it'll be dual purpose.
Right. So we're looking into a milk cow, which, requires a whole different set of. Well, son, let's not forget that the people that were here prior to us on this roughly 10 acres, they had 5 cows here, so it was played out pretty well. So we got a little bit of remediation to do in terms of the soil down there, and they basically had them going everywhere. Typically in a situation like that, where you have these cows going everywhere, they eat what they want and their soil gets played out, which, if you can see down the hill, it definitely is. So it needs a little bit of rest. It needs a little bit of TLC, which we're going to help get that off and running. We know how to do it. We've done it before in very poor soil. So that's part of the adventure of getting through this. But yeah, we got some things in terms of infrastructure before we ever get to that.
And then meat birds.
Right.
For obvious reasons.
Right. So yeah, we got 3 freezers. We have 3 freezers in addition to what we have inside that need to get filled. And we couldn't exactly bring all that stuff with us. So yeah, the meat birds, we're going to have to find. We're not going to be able to do in the past what we've typically done with the Salatin type chicken tractors. And frankly, we were never really happy with the Cornish crosses, but we have really great ideas that we've been wanting to try forever. For example, the chicken tractor on steroids, we've done with as many as 3 at a time with 100 birds, and 100% of their food provided.
Kitchen scraps.
Yeah, from kitchen scraps and things we've gotten elsewhere. So in this particular case, there's something I want to do, and I've been wanting to do for at least 4 or 5 years now, And that is basically do the chicken tractor on steroids, Jeff Lawton's chicken tractor on steroids, but this time with broilers. To my knowledge, it's never been done, but I want to do it to see if it can be done. And I think it can be done in this really steep terrain where we don't have the ability to necessarily pull a chicken tractor, but or at least not a Salatin type chicken tractor, but we can do it with other designs. And we're going to see, I'm really reasonably confident that it can be done.
And not with Cornish crosses though either.
Right. We're not going to use Cornish crosses. Frankly, in this area, I mean, I'm not a big fan of them. Yeah.
They're lazy.
Yeah, they're lazy, and also they don't behave like chickens. There's some, I can't really point out the ethical reasons why, but I've never been a big fan of Cornish crosses, even though we've raised hundreds and we butchered quite a few. But the Red Rangers and some of the other heritage breeds that take longer, I like the flavor, I like the temperament, and I like the fact that they behave like chickens. And I like also the fact that more than likely we can
reproduce them.
Yeah, not only that, but we can also take them within that chicken tractor on steroids. Where Cornish cross, I mean, there's a design way in which I've come up with where it could probably work. It ain't going to work on this terrain. So we've got to come up with other solutions. And I'm looking forward to doing it. Now, son, you want to pick out the most laughable part of this whole thing? The thing is, we're brainstorming as we're coming up with what we need to do first, second, and third. You want to come up with the last one right now?
Design it.
And it's in capital letters to demonstrate our, that, you know what, we've been at this a little while. And folks, that is the what? In the pantheon of things to do, son, where should that be? Yeah, so I got 3 asterisks there of the things that we should have put in first. It should have been designed at the very top of that list.
Well, even before you buy a property, you should probably design it.
Right, exactly. We should have at least had some idea of how to go about that. And we're working on that. So, folks, even people that have a little more experience, we made a colossal mistake, but it wasn't a mistake because we didn't actually, it's on paper at this point, which is exactly where you should start. So we prioritized these things, and in terms of priority, we thought, okay, got to have access, got to be able to get up here with the groceries. Otherwise, we're going to walk about 1/8 of a mile up a very steep driveway, which, you know what, I'm not opposed to necessarily, but it's going to suck in the rain. So we got to fix that driveway, the retaining walls. We got to get a hold of the big things. That's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
The retaining walls, rain catchment, gray water tank. I mean, I'm not a big fan of taking a bunch of water that's coming out of our sinks that could easily be repurposed, as we've done before, easily repurposed, that we could, instead of putting it into a septic tank, I mean, to me, son, and these days it just seems abhorrent to me to just waste water. Even though we have it, to waste it needlessly is just abhorrent to me.
Yeah.
Especially when we have so many options in which we can go about making it right. So where does that put us right? So where does this put us right now? I mean, we have, from where anybody's standing, we got a mountain of things to do. But you can look at it as that, or you can take pieces of it and prioritize, which we have every intention of doing. Today being a sunny day, we're going to work on this driveway a little bit. We're going to work on trying to get the water to shed in the proper places, and we really don't need much more at this time until we see the rain falling and find out exactly where it's falling on this driveway. We really don't need more than a shovel and a pickmatic to really get off and running, right? Mm-hmm. So then that's exactly where we're going to start. We're going to take the biggest priorities, the biggest things that hinder our progress, get hopping on those first. Right now, fix the driveway is right at the top of the list. And believe it or not, even though it's a nice day, it is just because it's a thorn in my side. I hate disorder. I hate disorder. I hate disorder. So that means that garage has got to get on lock. Your mom kind of put a damper in some of this stuff by making some homemade bread yesterday.
Yeah, and we stopped everything we're doing and ate a whole loaf of bread.
Yeah.
And then got the itis afterwards.
Yeah, so which resulted in me... Well, we won't even go into this, but basically it wasn't the most productive day in the world yesterday, so...
well, we still got stuff done in the morning, but as soon as that bread was made, everything stopped.
Yeah, your mom is a walking work stoppage, especially when she cooks delicious things like that, the sourdough bread that she works on her starter, all that good stuff. Anyway, it's we're looking forward to maybe getting a little progress today, so we'll cover some of that, and stay tuned for the rest, folks. We're in for a heck of a ride here, and we're looking forward to it. So this is Billy and William from Permapastures Farm. We'll see you next time.